SESCO Lighting people, if you're in the lighting industry in the Southeast United States, you probably know who SESCO Lighting is. And if you're not in the Southeast United States, there's a good chance you know who SESCO Lighting is. Founded in 1967 in Central Florida, SESCO grew to become an agent throughout the entire state of Florida. And then they expanded into Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and even the Caribbean. We thought that with 2020 being an interesting year for agents and manufacturers and specification sales and projects, that it would be a good time to catch up with the leader of SESCO Lighting to get some insights into how the business is doing and what changes have occurred to best promote the business during this challenging time. So we're pleased today to welcome Todd Langner of SESCO Lighting for 5 big questions. Todd, hello, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Great, thanks. Hey, Todd, 10 years ago, SESCO's footprint was big, but not as big as it is today. In the last 4 or 5 years, you've entered markets like Mississippi and Alabama, and sometimes agent expansion is a very challenging thing to do. With all the experience SESCO has in expanding its boundaries, what have you found to be the most successful strategies to make that expansion a successful one?
If we're fortunate enough to be able to find a good agent to acquire, like we did in Birmingham, for example, that's clearly the shortest distance between point A and point B. And we like to use that example because the cultural fit is critical. We call it being SESCOized, but the agent, for example, 3G that we bought there, it was had a lot of the same DNA that we had. So there was an immediate relationship that was created even throughout the negotiation, and it has really worked well. So my short answer would be that the cultural fit is really important. And then if we don't find somebody, like for example, we just entered Memphis, the West Tennessee market, then we either have to do it with homegrown people from within or build it from scratch, which also can work fine, just more challenging because, as we all know, it's hard to find experienced people in the lighting business.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, I've heard one very successful agent in the Northeast described agency boundary expansion as taking twice as long and costing twice as much as you originally might realize. But, yes. But it's good to see you folks do that successfully over the years. Another thing, and I've had some interactions with your agency over my career, and dating back, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, I remember the first time seeing in one of the email signatures of one of your employees was the statement, if there is a problem with a SESCO product that you specified or we supplied, we will fix it, period. That statement is in all of your employees' email signatures, and it's a bold promise. How has that served your agency, and what happens in the rare instance where maybe the manufacturer doesn't see eye to eye with what the proposed solution is by the specifier, end user, contractor, or even SESCO?
We love answering that question, frankly. There's a half a dozen things that our founder came up with, Mike Siegel, that really separate us. And the SESCO guarantee, as we call it, is right near the top of the list. And I will tell you that the expense we incur annually goes to 7 figures. And that's the expense that's not reimbursed by a manufacturer. So to answer your question, the key is to get the contractor off the job. So if there's a problem, they can't wait for us to negotiate with the manufacturer about who did what and whose fault it was. And it could have been a specifier mistake, as you said, contractor mistake, distributor mistake, or our mistake. We put that to the side, we get them what they need to get off of the job, and then we worry about who's going to get paid. So it is really one of the foundational pieces of our business, and frankly, has endeared us to our customers, particularly contractors who are having to meet a deadline on a project and really can't wait.
Understood. And yes, you folks obviously connect with all stakeholders like the contractor, specifiers, national accounts, et cetera. And given the challenges that we have in these pandemic times, what are some of the biggest adjustments that your agency has made this year to keep that contact and to keep that sales and service going with those various stakeholders?
Yeah, challenging to say the least. So it's funny because coincidentally, I was writing a memo particularly aimed to our younger salespeople about what they can do during this time to either maintain or create even relationships if they haven't built them yet. So again, very challenging in certain of our markets. Specifiers particularly are working from home, not seeing people. However, if you have a relationship, and usually a long-standing relationship where there's mutual kind of personal trust level, you can meet them for a meal in a restaurant and conduct your business there. Social media also, which we've been progressively getting more and more involved in, again, especially for our younger clientele, is a very good way to communicate. But we're putting together actually a mailing today of all the measures that you can take to try and maintain. And one of the key points, again, we think is a point of separation for us is this isn't just because your specifier, for example, doesn't have any projects, that doesn't mean you don't call them. The maintenance of relationships is critical. We've all been through, or most of us, multiple downturns, although nothing like this. And the continuity of a relationship is critical. You don't want to be that guy who only shows up when there's business. So this could be a very long answer, but those are some of the key points.
No, those are some great insights and great advice during pandemic times, or any times really, but especially even more important now. And one of the reasons we wanted to discuss these matters with SESCO is because not only are you a large agency with over 280 employees, but you also have perspectives into large markets like Miami and Atlanta, but also smaller markets like Birmingham, Alabama, or Chattanooga, Tennessee. So from your perspective, given the various geographic markets or the vertical side or channel of distributor, specifier, national accounts, et cetera, where do you see the best opportunities right now and into the short, medium term future?
I'll answer it a couple of ways. Geographically, obviously the Southeast has been very hard hit by the pandemic, and particularly South Florida. So seeing customers in South Florida, extremely challenging. And the construction, even the ongoing construction business and market in the larger cities has been more affected than some of the smaller regions. So sweet spots actually for us so far the last 5-6 months have been the smaller to mid-sized cities like the ones you mentioned. Birmingham, again, I think it's somewhat sort of sociological in that you can still go see most of your customers in Birmingham, and whether they're specifiers or contractors, and construction is going ahead. Whereas in Fort Lauderdale or Atlanta, obviously there's multiple issues. In terms of market segment, which is a big part of our company, we have divisions that are focused on various market verticals. So a sweet spot which we discovered and actually launched in the last recession, 2009 and 10, 11, was public sector business. We're very engaged in that throughout the company. It means calling on municipalities, state agencies, utilities, departments of transportation, et cetera. As you may recall from the last recession, that was the only sector that had business for the most part. We went in with both feet, and it is the fastest growing vertical in our business right now. National accounts, believe it or not, is also doing quite well, despite what's going on in the retail world and the restaurant world. So we just have to find where those sweet spots are.
No, that's a great answer with some great ways that you're adjusting your business and maybe we're already prepared to
Yeah.
adapt to these changes. And speaking of adapting, you represent Signify throughout your entire footprint, but also many other high quality manufacturers. And over the time, the last 6 or so months, you've seen some factories, I imagine, that have responded better and have been able to better support you during these changes than others. What are some of the best practices you see from some of the factories that you represent that have best supported SESCO and the SESCO customers throughout the territory?
I'll start off with not an evasive answer, but a little bit of a diversion, which is right now, we're not seeing manufacturers. So, that's a hard message to deliver to a regional guy who's trying to make a living and do his job. But all of our manufacturers, no exceptions, have been very understanding of it. We're not getting, backlash because of it, and they've been very supportive. On the more proactive side, to answer your question, we have a lot of manufacturers, and you've read about this, that we're being deluged with videos and training sessions and so forth. The most effective ones, believe it or not, are not, it's not surprising, are the guys who have figured out the attention span of their audience, and that includes us as well as specifiers. So some of them have gotten really good at 5-minute, 3-minute, even 1-minute presentations of a product, a spec locker, something like that, that really gets the point across and holds your attention. So, from our point of view, full training sessions are one thing, and we have to have those. But these short bursts of valuable information that we can convey, turn around and convey to our customers is ideal.
Good insights, Todd. Learned a lot from hearing your thoughts on the market and the factory support and everything else. So those were our 5 big questions today, Todd. So thank you so much for joining us for this discussion.
Very welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed it.